I'm Lisa Preece and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the differences between Walt Disney World and Disneyland Paris. And of course a lot of people say that you cannot compare the two, and I have to agree, but when I first went from going to Walt Disney World every other year for my whole life to actually going to Disneyland Paris and enjoying Disneyland Paris, I just did not know what to expect. So this is the sort of video for you if you've been going to one of these areas, if you've been going to Paris or if you've been going to Orlando for years and years and years and you want to try out the other one. This is what you need to know. But also if you go to both of them regularly like I sort of do now, oopsie, then you'll probably enjoy thinking about the differences as well, and I'm sure you'll have some more opinions to share, so don't forget to leave them below in the comments. Let's get straight into it with number one. So my first thing is that the major difference between Walt Disney World and Disneyland Paris is the length of your trip. So for Disneyland Paris, most people only tend to go for 2 or 3 nights. In fact, even 3 nights is sometimes a bit rare. I've been for 4 nights before and it is kind of I would say that is borderline too much. Whereas Walt Disney World, I mean, people can go there for 2 weeks and just do Disney. You can easily not leave Disney for that amount of time. In fact, when I last went in 2016, we did not leave Disney property for 10 days. Solid. It was when we drove out at the end, it was oh my god, the real world. I remember how horrible this is. I think the reason for this is that, of course, the number of parks in Florida, you've got 4 theme parks that are all just as big, if not bigger than Paris's 2 theme parks. So these all take, I would say personally, at least a day and a half per park. Then you've got 2 water parks that you could be doing. The Disney Springs and Disney Villages can't quite comparable. It's quite a hard one to compare actually, because Disney Springs is so much bigger and Disney Village is a lot smaller, but they have a lot of the same things, obviously the restaurants, the shops, the experiences. You can also go around the resorts in Disney. There are golf courses, mini golf, you can hire boats, there's just a lot more variety in the type of thing you can do, which means that a 2-week holiday in just Disney is completely possible. But I personally think for Paris a good amount of time is 2 or 3 nights, because you can do everything once, literally every ride you can get in that amount of time, and then you can redo all your favourites as well. So it's a really good amount of time. So number 2 is the amount of parks, and this is really what makes the length of your stay so different. So yeah, there really is just a lot more park to get around in Walt Disney World compared to Disneyland Paris, hence the longer trip time. There's just so many more rides as well. I really struggle to get every ride done in Florida when I visit, but in Disneyland Paris it's totally feasible to do every single ride, which seems a bit crazy, but it's so possible. Number 3, I think, is really the key reason why you can spend so much more time in Orlando than in the Paris sort of Disney versions, and that is because there are so many more touristy, theme parky type things to do in the area. So obviously in Orlando you've got Universal Studios, Busch Gardens, SeaWorld, all these other theme parks that are super popular. They're world-class theme parks. So suddenly if you're going to even say 2 or 3 of them, you're adding on an extra 3 or 4 days to your holiday. And then of course Orlando is the theme park capital of the world. You've got things like Fun Spot and Man and Two Swords, and there's just so many things competing for your money. So you can go on a full experience in Orlando, whereas in Paris, in the area that Disneyland Paris is in, it's sort of in a rural part of Paris. It's not even in Paris, it's the rural sort of area outside the city. So of course you can go into Paris very, very easily and get amazing cultural experiences from doing that, but there isn't the same sort of things that are outside Disney that you can do. In the area you can get a short train or a bus to shopping centres and things like that, which could definitely take up a day of your time or half a day, but there isn't any other sort of attractions that are competing for your attention, and definitely no other theme parks that you could tie into your trip. So number 4, now we're finally looking inside the parks. So there are a lot of ride similarities. Some of them are literally carbon copies of the other, which is so good if you are in the UK and looking for a Disney fix, because you can go to Paris and get on some of your favourite rides that you remember from Disney World, but a lot closer to home and a lot cheaper as well. Some of the ones that are the same, I think Buzz is very similar. I actually prefer the Paris version because you can like pick up your gun and actually aim it at things, whereas on the Walt Disney World version it's like stuck on the car, and I suck at that because I just do not ever know where I'm shooting. I am the worst person at that. Star Tours is like pretty much the same, I think. I haven't really noticed any differences. Oh, except it's in French, duh. But yeah, I really love that ride. It's so fun. Peter Pan, again, is very similar. And also obviously Dumbo doesn't really change. Dumbo is Dumbo. Small World is also very similar. You sit in a boat, you go through, the song plays, you know, all that good stuff. But then there are similar rides with even similar names that are different. Thunder Mountain is still like a mine train ride, but it's kind of a different, actually it is very similar. This is me as like a theme park geek being like, they're so different. But I just think the Paris one is a bit better. It's just a bit more fun and longer, and you go under a river like twice. It's so good. So yes, some of them are complete carbon copies and some have big similarities. But obviously at both Disney World and Disneyland Paris, they have their own unique rides, and these are some of the best ones as well. I mean, obviously Disney World has a hell of a lot more rides because there's an extra 2 parks, but some of the unique Disneyland Paris rides are like Crush's Coaster, which is honestly one of my favourite rides in any Disney park or any theme park ever for that matter. It's a roller coaster where you sit in a shell, like 2 people back to back, and you go like around a roller coaster, and it spins a little bit, but it's just the smoothest roller coaster ever, and it's so much fun. I just touched on it a minute ago, but number 5 are the languages. So if you are going to Walt Disney World, everything is in English. Like, they don't really cater for people that don't speak English in the shows or in the rides, even in the sign. Obviously they have different maps for every language, and a lot of the cast members speak multiple languages, but they don't really cater for non-English speaking people, which I think is reasonable, because obviously most of their people coming there are American. There's a lot of English people, a lot of other people who know English as a second language. It does make sense that it is all in English, but they just don't cater for other languages very much at all. In Paris, it is a completely different story, because there most people that go to the parks are French. So it completely makes sense for most things to be in French, but they are a lot more bilingual. So as an English speaking person who did like GCSE French and has since forgotten like 90% of it, I can get by with ease. Like almost every cast member understands at least basic English. You know, check out, order food without any issues at all. Most of the cast members are like fluent in English and can have like a good chat with you. But most importantly, all the shows are half in English and half in French, and I think it's very well done actually. I like that in some of the shows they will have, for example in Mickey and the Magician, Mickey is French and he only speaks in French, but the Magician is English and only speaks in English, and I just think it works so well because the dialogue is written so that one person will say one thing and then in the answer they will repeat the question and answer the question, so it's just that everyone can understand what's happening all the time, and I think it's really good. And I think it's going to be weird for me to go back to Disney World after hearing French Mickey so often. It's going to be weird to like watch shows completely in English. Not only is the language a key difference, but the whole culture as well. So in America, like service and customer service is king. You know, Americans really do have customer service down. They give the best sort of service that you can get. If you ever have a problem, they will do anything to help you, and that is no more true than in Disney. Everyone's very friendly, very welcoming, and it's just like a lovely atmosphere that it creates. In France, if you wanted to be stereotypical, they have a bit of a reputation for being blunt. I know that we are stereotyping whole countries here, and that is completely false when you like look down into things. I would say that in terms of Disney, this translates to cast members in America will talk your ear off and compliment you on your ears or your outfit constantly, and you'll make a bunch of new friends by the end of the day. In France, it's more like a transaction. It's more like cast members will help you do what you need to do, and that's it, which is totally fine. No cast member that I have come across has been particularly rude. I know some people have had bad experiences, but I'm sure that happens in both Disney World and Disneyland Paris as well. Not every cast member is going to be amazing all the time. Everyone has bad days, but it also kind of expands to the guests as well. We saw a lot more rule breaking in Paris, like people smoking in non-designated smoking areas and cast members not really caring. We saw a lot more queue jumping and people pretending they can't understand you if you question them. It's just a cultural difference. There's no right or wrong. What am I even trying to say here? Basically, there are cultural differences between Americans and French people. You already know this. I'm just pointing it out. Okay, let's move on. Wow, are we already on number 7? Wow, number 7, the weather. Another really obvious one. Florida is very humid. It rains a lot in the summer, but it is pretty much hot all year round. France, the climate is very similar to here in the UK. It's just a little bit nicer. So it's very, very cold in the winters. It can get down below freezing very often as well. And it will rain a lot, and it will not be the sort of warm, happy rain that there is in Florida. It will be like drizzle and sadness. But I think that Disneyland Paris know this very, very well, and most of their queue areas are at least covered, so when it's raining you're not getting wet, and most of them are inside so they can have the heating on. But then in Florida they also keep this in mind, so when they try to have covered areas so that you're not standing in the sun, you're standing in the shade, and those covered areas will have fans to try and keep you cool. And then of course you walk into the blissful air conditioning, and all is well with the world. No matter where you are planning a trip to, definitely check the sort of climate and average temperatures of the month that you're looking at, because a lot of months in Florida are the rainy season, so you can guarantee there'll be an afternoon like 30-minute downpour every day, which is pretty much what's going to happen when I go there in August and September, so yay. But likewise in France, if you are looking at the winter months, it's going to be cold, so you're going to need your coats and your hats and your scarves and a lot of hot chocolate, but that kind of makes it feel cozy and happy. Number 8 is the crowd levels, and this can be quite a complicated one. I personally think that over the last few years the crowds in Walt Disney World don't have as much of a calendar anymore. It is pretty much like a constant busy peak for like things like Thanksgiving and the 4th of July and Christmas and Easter, and it's just pretty much busy all the other times. It used to be that you could go in like a February or a May and it would be lovely and quiet, and that's kind of not the case anymore. It's just busy all the time. Of course, when you're planning your trip, make sure you look at the American school holidays. We're managing to go just after the American holidays finish, but the UK ones haven't, so my sister doesn't have to miss college or uni. But in Disneyland Paris, I personally think that it has a lot more sort of seasonal crowds. So here, 100% check the school holidays, because when the French kids are out of school, it really does peak like this, whereas other times, say like mid-January, it's dead. There's just not many people there at all, but of course it's very cold and it's probably going to be raining a little bit, and it's January, which is always a bit depressing. The great thing about Disneyland Paris is that in general it has a lot less people that visit, so you can find those shorter queue times and really sort of plan your day to make sure you're getting in as much as possible. And I do think you can get more done in a day in Disneyland Paris than you can in Walt Disney World, just because of the crowd levels. Number 9, one of the key differences is the castles, of course. The Walt Disney World castle is the Cinderella castle, and the Paris castle is the Sleeping Beauty castle. They are both beautiful. I think the Disney World one is slightly bigger. Obviously that one's white and blue, and the Paris one is pink. Some of the key differences is that you can, actually the similarities is that you can walk straight through the middle of both of them. But the difference is in the Paris one you can go upstairs and you can go downstairs. Upstairs they have like murals and they tell the story of Sleeping Beauty, and downstairs in the dungeon they have the dragon who breathes fire, which is quite exciting. But if you want to go inside the Walt Disney World version, you're going to have to get your wallet out, because to go upstairs you have to go to Cinderella's Royal Table, which is about $75 per person. So enjoy. And likewise you can also go to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique if you have a child or sibling under 12, I believe, and they can get a princess or pirate or prince makeover. It's definitely princesses, I forget what options they have, but that's the only ways that you can get inside the castle, as in not just walking through the middle. And number 10, my final difference is, I know I've talked about seasonal crowd levels, but they both also have seasonal events at the park. So one of the main things that like disappoints me about Disneyland Paris is that all of their shows don't run continuously through the year, because like I said, that January period where there's almost an empty park, they pretty much turn off most of the shows, and Disneyland Paris's shows are, personally, I think they're a lot better than the Walt Disney World shows. So it's particularly disappointing when at some points they literally have no shows in the whole 2 parks that are playing on a single day. But then they all come back for the summer, which obviously is good because that is when the most people are there. So that's really good, and it's a real motivator to go and visit in summertime. In Florida they don't really do seasonal things like that. The only thing that they would close and open is like the odd restaurant at the Tomorrowland Terrace that will only open on particularly busy days. They used to have attractions like Stitch's Great Escape that only opened on busy days, but now that's gone, so that doesn't even happen anymore. It's pretty much every day is business as usual for Walt Disney World. Of course they also have seasonal events like Halloween, Christmas, springtime celebrations. I think that Disneyland Paris is very good with this because they have continuous seasonal events. So far in 2018 we've already had the Season of the Force, now we're on the Pirate and Princess season, then the Marvel season is coming up, so they've got a lot of different events to like tempt people to come back, and they always have at least 2 or 3 sort of special sort of events or shows that do not happen when it is not that season, so that's always a good reason to go back. At Walt Disney World they are a lot bigger on events like Halloween and Christmas. So they start Halloween in sort of late August, so it's like 2.5 months of Halloween. It's crazy. And they have special events like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, and similarly for Christmas starts in the 2nd week or even the 1st week of November, and they have Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. That was a tongue twister. So they are very big on the seasonal events too, but they're just in a different way, I think. To be honest, like to do extra things in Florida, you're always going to have to pay for things, whereas Disneyland Paris is more keen to like attract new guests, so they sort of give you that for free a bit more. Yeah, those are my main differences between Disneyland Paris and Walt Disney World. I'm sure there are a lot more differences, but these are the sort of main ones that I thought of. If you've got any other ideas, like do write them in the comments. I'd also love to hear if you have been to one or the other and you're thinking of going to the other one, what you're sort of thinking about it. Are you hoping to go one day or try it out? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you have, and don't forget to subscribe. I've got my Disney World videos are coming up. I'm going in late August to early September, so don't forget to say hello if you see me there, and of course I will be vlogging the whole thing for you, so they will be here before I know it, hopefully. I just want to go back. But yes, I digress. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!